Now just enjoy it.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome. We'll just introduce everyone. This is the third in our series of artist open houses online. Thank you very much, Khaled, for beginning in such a beautiful way. Thank you. This series is part of a wider open call. If you feel inspired to share with us your lockdown experiences as a creative person, they may not all be super positive. It's been a really difficult time, and I think that's just as valid to share as more polished success stories if you feel able. And so we've set a kind of rough deadline of sending us your short films, maybe 3, maximum 5 minutes long, of your workspaces, how you've adapted them, how you've managed to work, or what blocks you've had. And send the link to us, and we'll create a playlist that we'll begin sharing very soon. So without further ado, we'll introduce Sef Townsend. He is a fantastic performer. I've had the pleasure to ask to perform at the Walthamstow Garden Party, and so this evening he's our guest curator. He'll be introducing our artists and interviewing them. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, and Penny will be directing those to the artist later on. It should be about an hour or so, and then we have kind of a more informal social. So if you want to stay at the end and you feel able, then please do. And I think that's everything. The event's being recorded, so you know, and we can use snippets of that in a compilation film that Orlando Capitano is kindly making for us. So welcome, thank you for coming on this very warm evening, and I shall hand you over to Sef. Thank you, Sef.
Hello, everybody. It's very nice to be here and to be part of artists' open houses, and particularly to be talking and conversing with Rezia and Khaled, Rezia Wahid, and Khaled Nurul Hakim, who I've had the pleasure with over the last few years to collaborate, and to have the opportunity to interview them is wonderful. So without further ado, let's go over and say hello to Rezia and Khaled. Are you there, Rezia?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Sef. Thank you very much.
Shalom, salam.
Very nice of you. Salam, shalom, and good evening. Now, before we go much further, I'd just like to say that I know you as two extremely busy, occupied, engaged artists, not only in your own practice, but in the community. And I've collaborated with you on the garden party that was just mentioned, the Walthamstow Garden Party. And I know you, Khaled, initially from your drumming, which we heard, drumming the duff at the beginning. And I know you for your wonderful textile works. But let's not go on without, yes, that's Rezia, of course. Let's just have a look. Laura, if you're ready, I think you made a little film to just show us a little bit of your working environment. Can we look at that film? Okay.
It's on its way.
Laura, are you there?
I am. It's starting.
I did. To be clear. I can't see it from here.
I know.
Wow. Well, that takes us immediately to the first question, because there you are sitting at your loom, and now you're sitting at your table next to Khaled. And immediately we hear children and I see little chairs in your workspace. Rezia, what is it like to continue doing that beautiful work and to be homeschooling and caring for children and looking after a family?
It's hard work, but it's worthwhile, and every moment is very precious. As much as to get the balance right, to be able to look after the children and give them the time that they need, and also be an artist. How to balance that, I still haven't figured it out. I think I just do. And as I was saying to you earlier, it's a very holistic and spontaneous way that we both operate, I think. And it's very natural. Sometimes when we try to really write things down and put things down rigorously, for us it doesn't really work, for me anyway.
So there you are. We saw you in your studio, but you're not in your studio at the moment, and you're not always in your studio. So where are you when you're not in your studio?
So we are in our main living area, and I will hand it over to Khaled. There you go. So this is our table, which
this is your space.
This is my space.
Your computer.
Where I have my computer here, and I work as a teacher. I work as a teacher 3 days a week, and as a weaver artist, say 3 to 4 days a week, including the weekend. So balancing this out. So here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I homeschool as well as teach on Google Classroom. And here I will have our son sitting here, daughter sitting there, and then other son sitting there, and Khaled will be standing over there. And I tell Khaled what to do, where to, have you got this printout? Have you done this? Have you done that? So as the children say, Mummy doesn't really teach, Mummy just tells Daddy what to do when it comes to teaching. And over there, here, we have, as you can see, a rocking horse, and our 3-year-old will be. How many children? Oh, Khaled is reminding me. This often happens that we have.
We can hear Khaled. We can hear Khaled. No, Khaled, don't worry, Khaled. We're going to go there.
He's very proud as a father for having 4 children. So this is the nursery area, if you like, during the weekdays when we're homeschooling. This is where the children have their lunch, dinner, and then
this is actually this is our COVID setup.
Yeah.
This is the correct. This was not set up prior.
You're talking again, Khaled. As Sef said, right? This is he did say, how do you find homeschooling, and where are you sitting, and where are you? So this is our main living area, and Khaled has actually launched his book, which everyone's heard about, Book of Naseeb, from here, and he has had my phone on standing here, so he launched it through Twitter from my phone. So it's a very, very important space. It became very, very irrelevant during this COVID and lockdown. This is the way we just had to make things happen.
So, yes, okay, so Khaled's just launched his book, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But you're an award-winning artist. You can see your arm there. Oh, it's wonderful what Khaled's doing, because we can see it's a small space.
Yeah.
It's a small space, and you're working, and I just wonder what's the difference now that you've got COVID and you actually got the children in the house and you're still working on your textiles. It just seems like, tell us about it. How do you manage?
I will be very, very honest. So you mentioned, I normally don't talk about my awards or recently. Yeah. Anyway, I sort of gained all my awards before meeting Khaled, and
it's all downhill from here. That's what you're saying.
It was very yeah. So I graduated in '98, and my work sort of spoke for itself, and I was very honored and lucky enough to have exhibitions, solo shows, commissions, and also set up for myself what I really wanted to do. And what I struggled with back then was how to produce what I really wanted to produce from my own heart, and pieces that are meaningful, and not only meaningful but show the craft of weaving and connects the world together with. I do truly believe that cloth historically is a wonderful way which connects people, and is very powerful historically to do many things. Like, we have the flag of every country is a piece of fabric, and with that fabric it tells many stories. From birth to death, we are all, as human beings, wrapped within cloth. So that is my background as a researcher.
But you're still doing it. And look, we've got pencils and papers and books and children's things. How do you break up your day?
Okay, so as I said, we work very naturally and spontaneously. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm a teacher. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm a weaver, collaborator, artist. So that's how naturally I've worked for the last 10, 12 years. And producing the weaving normally used to happen after midnight, or when I would get a family member so that they can take care of the children while I weave in the studio. But COVID actually and homeschooling allowed the video that you just saw happen. So in a way, this setup, which Khaled produced, this setup has worked for us.
So you talked about your collaboration with Khaled.
Our collaboration. So I think I will go into the history a little bit. The music that you heard was what drew me close to Khaled. First of all, I saw that as well as textiles, music speaks to people. Music brings us together. Art brings us together. And during the time I met him, we had July 11, 7/11, okay? And as a teacher, my school needed something that was, I as a head of art, I wanted something positive about Islam, about the faiths, and to show that, you know, there is positivity, you know, there's music in Islam, there's music in every religion. So I invited Khaled to my school, and I did a bit like you, Sef, what you do. I did a storytelling, 1 week of storytelling by the Silk Roads was my theme. And Khaled was the musician, and I had Alia. So this is where it began. In 2007, Alia was the storyteller.
Right. So
now,
go on.
Yeah. So it grew. So now that's how we sort of started working. So work is probably, collaborations are probably what keeps us together, mainly, and takes us away from everything else. Recently, I've got a commission from the Vatican for the garden party again, and due to the COVID, of course, we cannot meet, and the theme is up in air, which Laura knows. So up in air, and that just air, of course,
yes,
is where my theme is. And
can you tell us what you are known as well as Rezia? You know, Rezia Halima Wahid or Rezia Wahid. Sometimes you have another name for your work.
Woven air, yes. So woven air, I bumped into a field full of dandelions. I haven't learned my technique from anywhere else, but from researching my own work and finding inspiration from our British countryside. And I fell into a field of dandelions in 1996. And I thought, this is it. This is what I want to make and produce. And it's got to be air. And I said, weave air. And then when I took this inspiration to my tutors, they said, you know what? There was an exhibition in 1986 at the Whitechapel Gallery. Have you seen it? I said, no, I was only about 11 years old then. I don't know. So that, the tutor sort of directed me to the Whitechapel Gallery, to the Victoria and Albert Museum, and through those researching and walking into the fabrics, I found out that Bangladesh, where I was born, produced this wonderful light fabric where 6 meters could go through a signet ring. That's how light they were.
Listen, I want us to talk about that fabric, and we're going to come back to you for a good deal of time, maybe after we look at some of your work. And just before going on to Khaled, you said you're teaching. Are you still teaching?
I am still teaching, Sef. I know.
Oh my goodness. Do you know, we're going to come back and talk to you again, but it seems amazing that both of you in this space are creating so much work. So I think it's now time if we talk to Khaled, and I see the cameras are moving. Are you there, Khaled? I think one of the best introductions, Khaled, is I just saw a little film that you had created, which...
It's my publisher, actually.
Yes, I know, but in a way, the thing is, it goes straight into what you were doing, where your book came from, where your book is going. And I think that would be do you think it's a good point for us to start? Or do you want to say something first?
No.
So maybe, Laura, if you're ready, I think this is an extraordinary little minute of something that really takes us into the essence of what your book is.
How many angels assembled at the blast, protectors and scribes for every soul overborn. Some mystics imagine our world so well that in their minds it assumes a shape. But this shape has no top or bottom. It is not coloured. It has no weight. Truly our substance is infinitely stiff, infinitely pliant. We vibrate as one with no delay and no wave motion. Nevertheless, the blast of Israfil's horn disturbs a boat on a calm lake. An angel is a fine and wonderful thing, almost amphibian between being and not being, as elastic deformation, or variation of pressure, or electrical or magnetic intensity. The water does not move forward, only the shape of the wave, and the boat oscillates up and down.
Wow. So immediately we're into your world. You're a poet, and we see that. We see the landscapes. What we don't see, and what people don't probably know, maybe people haven't yet read your book, but actually you have Naseeb, who is an extraordinary, fragile and slightly odd character. There's the book. Yeah. And then you have Barzakh, which is a second part of the book. They're completely different.
Yeah.
Is that enough for you to go on? Because I had some really interesting observations, but maybe if you don't mention them, I can mention them later.
So I'm going to assume that nobody certainly read the book, and then may have just started hearing about it. Just a few days ago, we were all in the family, the extended family, were all delighted, and I had a big half-page spread in the Independent in the Eye, and
the Guardian.
Not in the Guardian, in the Independence, and it felt we're old-fashioned, I guess. It felt with my family, my surviving mother, extended family, with Rezia's parents. Do you know what? You know, we're in this digital age now, but the fact that it was in a broadsheet newspaper it felt like I'd kind of arrived. It's funny. I don't know how many people saw that broadsheet, but it definitely felt different. But anyway, on the book is it's split into two halves. Originally, it came out of a screenplay when I was working in film and television. Rezia speaks about the collaboration that we're starting to do because of coronavirus. I've been going back to my film TV background to start producing some of the videos that we're doing, and it came out of a screenplay that was due to be shot in Uzbekistan. Rezia talks about 7/11, yeah, and it was exactly the same time because I wrote that screenplay straight from 7/11, and I think it was due to be shot in 2006, and about 2 weeks before, just a small budget thing, but 2 weeks before we were due to go over, civil war broke out and all the borders were shut and no one could come in and out. So that was that. That is the Barzak bit, and that film that you've seen really refers to that second part, which is very, very mythic.
Yes, and so when you say Barzak, can you unpick that? Because I know it is a sort of separation, a division or something. So can I just go into it? The first part is almost like a film script, and it uses a really shocking sometimes type of language. Yeah. Well, to me it's shocking because there's almost an anger there. But in the second part, we're talking about protecting angels, and in the first part we're talking about protectors, and protectors are to do with the drug industry. Can you just unpick those two things a little bit for us?
The Barzak stuff will know. It comes Semitic kind of from language, Arabic. It's a form of Islamic purgatory in a way. That's the nearest kind of way you can describe it. It's the separation between this world and the afterlife, and this zone that we go to, sort of where we find that in a way we don't know we're dead. This is it's like Sixth Sense, but it's in common in many spiritual traditions. We don't know we're dead, and we find out why we're here. But the first part, which is very different, when I started writing the book and I was telling people about it, and people in the industry, I was kind of tagging it as a Muslim, A Clockwork Orange. That's what I kept on telling people. I thought, they would understand, they would get it. Also, it would just kind of excite people's imagination, not only as a kind of warning that you were going to come into some dark subject matter and sort of dark areas, but also for the language that I use in the first part, which is, it's actually, the book is written by Naseeb's recording angels. The recording angels, which are common in the Judaic and the Islamic traditions, I think in the Christian tradition.
And of course, Israfil is Raphael and all that sort of thing. I mean, go on. So
it's written in a street language, which is almost dyslexic, but I put it in the mouth of the angels, that the angels are so identify with their care, their person that they're following around. They're so identified and so sympathetic that they actually speak in his semi-literate kind of language and his street speak. So it sounds very strange. It's not like that brief little snippet that you saw in the video. It's one of the few passages which are kind of straight from the beginning, and the rest is in this kind of street argot. And it's what can I say?
Well, one thing that interested me and I think you mentioned it to me before, and I'd like to go into it, is, to me, it's so aware of the life process. You talk about the sort of the in-between period when we're dead and we don't know where we are. But there's so many references to babies and baby shit and mattresses and washing machines and a long time ago I wet myself and this sort of thing. What's all that about?
The parts of the book that, for the most part, I really enjoyed writing was the mythic part. But somebody told me, and I remembered it, that it needed grounding in a kind of reality. That first part, which is very, very much part of the realist, okay, you're following around angels, and you've got the whole Islamic panoply of angels and angelic realms. But actually, I see it as a very realist mode. So it's actually based around about Walthamstow, which is where I was living when starting writing this. But as I was saying to you, because there's a bit of a quirk where my hero has to escape from some kind of shooting or whatever, and he has to get up to the motorway station at a certain time. And I just worked out in my head, there's no way on a Saturday night at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock that he could get off the A406 and to that motorway station in time. So I had to put it to the Wembley area, which is where me and Rezia used to be living 10 years ago. But actually, it's based very much here and now. There are little bits of domestic life, obviously, which...
Well, I can see that, and the children thing. You mentioned something about having a child when you started.
That was, yeah. When I started, so the original screenplay is around 2005, 2006. When it was aborted, and I just simply put it aside and followed a spiritual path for many years, and came back to it. I believe I came back to it, started thinking about it in 2011, I started. And I had one child, and I think Isa, our second child, was on the way. He was in mummy's tummy when I started writing it. And there are these little stages. So there are these kind of stages. It went out after about 2.5 years, too soon. It went to some publishers and agents, and too soon. It was a horrible mess. But Isa was born, and I got a feeling that the next one was just on the way. So my babies have these little signposts actually where the screenplay was. And originally, the angels were nowhere to be seen in that novel. And so after my third child was born, again I can sort of signpost it. And I had oh yes, you know what? This is. If I had this and I have the angels following around, it's through the angels' voices that we hear his story. And so Musa, my next one, my third one, he didn't directly, but it's my kind of signpost. Okay, this is the next change in the novel. And then again, there's another long graft. And I think that it was nearing a shape that I actually felt very, very confident about. And that's
right. So we have to move on, but I just want to say that, you know, there are these babies, and there is Naseeb, and he's a drug dealer accompanied by angels. It's really weird, if you know what I mean.
I will tell you, I will say one thing, which is that, one, I know that a lot of writers, especially with their first novels, they write biographically. They can't help but write biographically.
Yes.
And I, for the most part, I'm proud to say, I wasn't writing biographically. And I did, it's my one testimony to myself that I stuck it out, because the early days of writing that first part and being with my character, who was a petty drug dealer and a bullshitter to himself as well, and had many flaws and the rest of it. It was the first years were a bit of a grind, and it was when I had the angels, and I started writing through the angels. That's when I started warming to my character, and later on I started seeing actually there was a bit more of me and him than
I think the interesting thing, and now we have to move on, is that he's a drug dealer for a particular reason, which we don't know yet if we haven't read it. And can you tell us what that reason is?
In his mind, he wants to sort of make it big in order to build a hospital and fit the injured in Afghanistan with prosthetic legs. Those who've been injured by various wars and landmines and whatnot.
I think that's the most extraordinary thing about it, that we have this really rough person who's actually not very clever in some ways, or he's very fragile, or he's very off the wall, and yet he's got this real thing behind him. He wants to do good in the world. It's a very interesting juxtaposition. And
yeah, I wanted to make him everyman. That we all have these dark and light parts to us, and he could go down any passage, he could go down any road, and it's partly by design, partly by accident, partly by choices that we make. But
well,
yeah.
thank you, Khaled. It's time to move on. Time goes very fast when we're talking. So are you okay if we pass back to...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You should go back to the star of the evening.
Rezia, before we go on, what are you wearing? You're wearing something rather beautiful. Can we see? What is it? Did you make it?
I did, Sef. So this is not something that I wove. I will tell you how I managed.
Is it one of your tech pieces?
Yes. So while I think after our second child, I had a PhD researcher who found me somehow and asked if I commissioned me to design something that has, which connects Burberry designs and Jamdani from Bangladesh. So
yes, that's interesting. I used to be in the rag trade at the age of 15. So Jamdani is a very interesting technique. Is this the time to look at your video of you working on? Do you think?
Yes, please.
Yes, Laura, do you think we could look at that video and it'll lead us into talking about the textiles? So, without getting too technical about Jamdani, because Jamdani I know is a sort of jacquard process, but what I see in that video is beautiful silk being woven, and then on top of it there are lines of color. What is that, and what is it there for?
So when we got married, and I used to have a studio in Deptford Bridge with my loom, a very large studio, and when we got married, I conceived Halima. I couldn't keep everything together, so I had to dismantle my studio. And before dismantling, I designed, while I was pregnant with Halima, I designed this piece because I fell in love. You know, when you're pregnant, you either love something or hate something. And I just fell in love with lavender. And so I was sketching, the smell, everything. So I designed this piece, which sort of resonates my pregnancy and thoughts, processes, and I designed it then. Then we had to dismantle, so I had no equipment to make it with, and I put it together. It's a long process, a bit like Khaled's book, together after our second child. And then it went away, it was put away because I got busy with other projects. So in a way, when COVID happened, I thought, I've got to make this piece. I just have to. And by then, we've now got 4 children. So they all have names and meanings. And sort of, for me, Halima is the bright star. And Isa is the wise sun. And Musa is the moonlight. And Hood is our rainbow, magical rainbow. So those colors, they are in there. And I've kind of like, I haven't done this before, but all these colors are like, they are swimming within me, if you like, just like the way they swam inside me. So lockdown was really great that I wove it together with them in the studio.
We heard them. It was wonderful. So are they there when you're working?
Sometimes not. Sometimes yes. When they can get on, because they have their play cooker. I had to move the play cooker there, make them a little play area so that they can get on. They have their own looms. Do you want Khaled to go away from here now, Sef?
If you are talking, if he,
I don't need prompt.
Yeah, but listen, I'm asking you about your work, and I know your work, and it's so soft. It's unbelievable. What can you tell us about the materials and why being so soft doesn't it break when you're weaving it?
So, Sef, silk, this is technical. Silk is the strongest fiber in the world, and it's stronger than wire, it's stronger than metal, it's the strongest fiber. So all the other methods and ways that I researched failed me because I wanted something really strong. And so Jamdani actually has cotton on the warp, on the loom. And they weave with the silk on the weft. The shuttle is the silk, and the warp, the main cloth, is the cotton. And it didn't work for me. So I thought, I don't want to produce things that are already there. Yes. So silk worked for me. It's very, very strong. So here is a piece of,
Rezia,
so it does, it's this.
Can I interrupt you just for a second? Your light is behind you, so it's quite hard to see the beautiful detail on your weaving. So I hope you forgive me interrupting.
Thank you.
You perhaps turn the camera so the window isn't behind you. Okay. We might get a better.
Oh, that's.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
And so Sef, sorry, I've forgotten your question. I can talk about the location.
So the question is the weft and the warp both silk?
No, so I'm using the silk is on the warp, which is this is the warp, and on the weft I use a very, very fine silk, which I can't get hold of anymore, and I'm trying. I bought from Japan when I was in Japan. It's the silk straight from the cocoon with no process, and it has the original gum, and it's almost invisible to the naked eye.
Okay, Rezia, we do need to give time for questions. I'd just like to know, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about before we go on to the questions? I mean, what you're wearing, is that silk?
Yes, this is silk. There's some 100% silk. mixture of cotton and recycled silk as well. And as I was saying, this was a commission from a PhD researcher, and the design just evolved, and my inspirations evolved after I did the commission for him, which was combining the Burberry and Jamdani. And then I also started putting in my Annie Albers' inspiration, and Joseph Albers, his sketches that I did from his painting. This is all up with children and within this time.
Okay. With this work, you've been honoured. You've got an MBE. You've exhibited in some very prestigious venues. So maybe it's time to hand over to people if we've got any. Do we have any questions? I can see Julia is there.
Right, yes. I've got a question here about the dandelion field, Rezia, that's inspired the woven air. Was it a field of dandelion seed heads or the yellow flowers?
Seed heads.
Where was the field?
Farnham. So I studied weaving at the Surrey Institute of Education in Farnham for 4 years.
Okay, because you spent time in Norfolk as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
And I've actually got a question for Khaled. The period of your time that you were writing your book, you could never have imagined that it would be published during this lockdown period. How has that felt in terms of launching the book? I mean, you launched it from your table. Has that been disappointing?
It should have been. No, not really. I sat down with my publisher, Tom Chivers, at Pen to the Margins late last year, and we were working out the windows, the publishing windows that we had to launch it. And the first part of the book is set during the end of Ramadan, and that year, last year, me and Rezia, both as part. I remember a couple of events, part of E17 Art Trail for Art Night as well, and we ran some events as part of Ramadan, and we knew, and we were going to do some more. And my publisher was going to do an event during Ramadan. I was going to do an event. So we had Ramadan, May, which is May, late April into May, and we chose May, right slap bang in the middle of towards the second half of Ramadan, and there would have been this total congruity between what was happening in the book and what was happening, how we were launching it. And so obviously coronavirus happened. And I say, well, it's because I'm lucky in this sense that I had this, for all my faults, I had a strong relationship with God. And I just, well, look, I just thought, well, this is what's happening. This is part of the plan. It was kind of like out of my hands. At the end of the year, when Tom had taken the project over, it was in his hands. Everything, all of the proofing had been done. That was me finished with the book, and it was in other people's hands. It was in God's hands, and So I did mention on some kind of social media that I felt for other people. All those people that were having their first break. They were going to play, for instance, they were going to play Glastonbury for the first time in 2020. They were going to have their first solo show at some big, gallery. They were going to have their first record out. They were going to do this and the other, and it was all, sort of, it went tits up because of the coronavirus. So I felt for them quite a bit, but I was fine.
Here's a good one for you, Rezia, about a question about living with an author. This person said they once shared a house with an author, and she talked about how exhausting it was to always be occupying her characters as she developed her drafts. She wonders if Khaled's family noticed any of the characters beginning to occupy Khaled as he wrote it.
I think, yes, sometimes when we would have rows, I have said, oh my goodness, you have turned into that. I have to say that because Khaled, I think living, because I didn't marry him as an author, if you know what I mean, because he did put it away, as he said. So it was probably more the struggle of suddenly he's an author. What do I do? You know, I've got to be the bread earner. What do I do? He has to write this book. If he doesn't, then, you know, he won't be satisfied. He will be lost. What do I do? It was more like trying to accept that part of him was more difficult than, yeah.
That's interesting. Another one we have here. How did you get the loom in the garden studio?
Yeah, this is why I married him. He did.
No, you have to say, it's actually, there's a step back.
Yeah.
She built the studio, and it's a very big studio.
Should I answer this, Seth?
Yes. Yeah, go on.
Right. So, Khaled helped a lot.
I built it.
So my studio, I was heavily pregnant with our second child, and we just moved into this house, and I had to dismantle the loom. So Khaled helped me dismantle the loom. He was very careful about which parts are which, labeling them and putting them together. And we actually had it here in this space where the table is for months. Oh. And then I designed the space that the loom is in. And I was lucky enough to get a carpenter, local carpenter who built bespoke to my design and needs of the loom, which was the size, the space, which way it faces, and it just had to work with the light and spiritually which way it should be facing when I'm weaving.
Oh, that's interesting. The spiritual for time.
Well, so then this next question is very apt because you have your space in your garden studio. Does Khaled need a quiet place to write? And where do you find a quiet place in a house with 4 children?
Shall I answer this? This is why I was saying, you know, this, we don't write things down rigorously. Like Khaled is very, very, I would say, it's natural, but I know him and he knows me, and he runs away to the loft where so we are lucky enough to have this space in the loft where originally it was maybe a guest room, floor room, or nothing really, just space for the children's toys and things, and our extra things, his drums, my extra luggage, and yes, the Moses basket when we didn't need it, the cot when we didn't need it. So he found this space, you know, and the space just became a real space day by day, and I was like, okay, so this is what he wants to do, you know. There was no negotiation, it was just a natural thing. And of course, as if I say to Khaled, that's it, I'm going to go in there and weave, you know, unless he has something important to do, he will not let me have that time. And again, it won't be, sometimes, yeah, it's not very well communicated. I think that's where the sort of, you know, tension happens. But somehow we have managed, and I'm quite, yeah, I feel, you know how Khaled says when we got married, as Sef says, you are an award-winning artist. You know, Khaled was a Sufi musician, and he was a very humble person, and that is what my parents saw. And now, you know, he's this, you know, writer.
An arrogant author.
yeah. So, you know, in a way, I don't know which my parents would have preferred for me, this successful novelist, you know, and going to write more wonderfully and be bigger, or this Sufi, lovely Sufi, humble musician. I'm not sure which they would prefer. That's an interesting thought for me, anyway.
I want to raise something which goes back about nearly an hour ago, when she said that she won all her awards and stuff before she met me. Actually, all the activities. Actually, no, it was before the first child came on board. We were together when you were putting your solo show, one of your solo shows in Leicester. You know, that was an important thing. Other solo shows, it was the babies, which I mean, that is a thing for a lot. Rezia has been talking to me just over the last few days about so many of the contemporary weavers that she grew up with, and the makers, as they're called, who sort of, as it were, fell by the wayside. They were contemporary. They were working. They did, you know, maybe some shows, and then they fell off. And I think a lot of people expected that of Rezia, that once the babies started coming along, that just naturally it would be put aside. There wouldn't be a studio, there wouldn't be the work being produced, there wouldn't be the commissions. And
I think the important thing here is what you said, Rezia. Somehow we managed. And you certainly did, because look at you. I mean, so it's delightful to see this interaction between you, but the most important words are somehow we managed. I think that's fabulous.
And can we go back to an earlier point? A few people have mentioned this, and I didn't pick up on it either. You talked about the proper direction for your loom to stand, and with what direction is that?
Right, so Khaled just whispered feng shui. So the way we pray, so it's facing this way, which is the Mecca, south. So my loom is facing south, southeast, and it's where, how we pray, the way that our direction towards God, towards Mecca, towards
But is there are other practical things as well?
So the practical things is what I found while studying craft, if you like. So originally I did my foundation course at the Chelsea College of Art and Design, where we learned everything. And in London, I found it very difficult to sort of really produce from the heart. And from a very early time, I knew that I want to make something that is from the heart. And when I went to Farnham, I just loved the fact that the university had structured everything in a way that when you're learning straight from scratch, you know, where the thread comes from, actually taking the wool from the sheep to growing your own plants and then making them into fibers. And that also, they had the whole essence of the structure was built from a Buddhist practice. There's a link to Japan and the university in Japan. So Farnham works very closely with that sort of spiritual link, which a lot of Japanese and artists work with. If you like, Bernard Litch, you know, he has a lot of
what's that to do with your studio? My
studio, well, that's where I learned. That's how the spiritual side grew and grew, and then I didn't realize how much it connects with Islam itself. My studies, the craft studies,
So there's a really good question that's just come through. So do you see creating art as a form of worship?
Yes. If you notice, I have my shoes off, even my socks off when I'm on my loom, and That's how I weave, and I like to weave. And every piece, yeah, we pray without our socks and shoes. And every piece, so because it's a form of calm spiritual essence from the heart, if you like, and the children. I was saying to Khaled, when I'm pregnant, I really feel that there's a other power, which is the magic of something that's greater than us. We're not really making the baby inside, Yeah,
Laura commented on how lovely it was that the children were around your feet while you were working. And we did wonder, and she wondered why they're being so good now and they haven't sort of popped onto camera so far.
So yeah, they can come actually, but I think they're not probably watching a movie. So I in between having our tech meeting and actual Zoom meeting now, I gave them a cool wash, fed them, cool wash, and they're watching a movie with my sister.
Oh, lovely. Now, here's a question. I quite like from Morag. I quite like the romance of weaving from midnight, but I can't imagine it's possible to be fresh and creative at midnight. Do you have a weaver's nap before you head to the loom?
No, I just put all the children to bed and then say to Khaled while he's writing upstairs, I'm going, I won't be here. So if they wake up, because they usually always mummy, they need mummy. But when I am inside the studio and I can sort of be absolutely free, that Khaled is looking and knows they're there and will be taking care. Yeah, that's what the midnight has to be, free. I have to be absolutely carefree of everything.
Okay, wow. I have a sort of an artillery type question, because you're both very involved in local community things and you've been involved in the 17 Art Trail. How important is being connected to the community to your work?
So for me, it's very important, and it's sort of it comes from what I was talking about earlier, is how cloth fabric connects people. And both Khaled and I have worked with interfaith projects before we met, and we were very interested in working with interfaith and other communities, other religions, and other form of arts, and bringing things together. Because I just feel that it is very important to get to know one another and celebrate and be part of the community. Otherwise, we're not really, we can only blame the other, if you know what I mean. It's a way for me to step forward and say, hi, let's work together to improve the if you like, the greater part of the things, and historically make changes to appreciate one another's culture, religions, way of living.
I was just going to say that I think that Rezia is a much more naturally social and communitarian person than I've been very interested in interfaith, but I wouldn't say that, especially as becoming increasingly an author, I don't really know how to connect with the community at the moment. I think I follow Rezia. She's the one. She's the one who has all the links with the community and the rest of it.
It's also very natural as a teacher. I think I haven't spoken much about being a teacher, but I started teaching in 2000, and my first ever teaching job landed me in Walthamstow. That's how we came to live in Walthamstow. So I became a teacher, if I may go into it, if that's okay. I was an artist in residence at a school, secondary school. I was invited to weave. I had a space after graduation, which was for free, and in return, I had to help A-level and GCSE pupils build their portfolio. And so there was a student teacher who was being observed by Leslie Burgess, who's a fantastic educationalist who writes, and she's got great books from the Institute of Education. And she said, you have to do this course. We need practitioners like you. And I said, no, I don't, I'm sorry. I've just put hold on MA, and which I had bursary to do an MA in Japan, and because I want to make my own pieces and I want to be a weaver in London, and no, I don't want to do anything. She said, no, this is really good. You know, she somehow persuaded me. And when I did start my PGCE at the Institute of Education, she said I could have my loom at the Institute of Education, and that was it. You know, my artist in residency was running off, and it was changing, and I could put my loom at the Institute of Education and study craft in education. So that's it. And then when I became a teacher, I thought, you know, I'm going to buy my own loom. I need a loom with the money that I earned from teaching. And I never looked back, really, mainly because each year the sort of the connection with pupils, the connection that how you change someone, or you sort of support a child, and the family as well, and the community, it just made me feel like full, you know, as a weaver, as a maker, as yeah. So right. Teaching, yeah, okay, is what made me come to Walthamstow.
I mean, Laura does point out that Khaled's music is very much something that does engage with the community. You say you don't.
I need to persuade him a lot.
Okay. Khaled, you haven't mentioned where we can get your book, or whether there's anywhere local we can get it. And are you thinking about your next novel?
I'm certainly thinking about my next books. I think that I don't think bookshops have quite opened up yet. I don't think. I know that it was due to be in our local Waterstones in the Mall and all the rest of it. So you can just find it off, you know, Amazon Prime, or the publisher, Pen to the Margins. But it's, you know, it's in the normal. If you just Google Book of Naseeb, pops all this stuff. So it's you know, the usual outlets.
I think
thank you for the plug.
$6.99 on Kindle, somebody's pointed out. And you can order it from Pen to the Margins as well, I know.
Yes.
They're really good.
Yeah. Things are slowly sort of coming back to normal. And I said to the publishers as well that later in the year, because in a sense, in a way, 6 months of everybody's life has sort of we've been in some other strange Barzak kind of zone that we're going to come out. So we'll do another launch. You know, and I'll do an event here in Walthamstow with Rezia and with music and whatnot, and they'll do launches. So there will be something physical. I realised that both myself and Rezia were so used to actual physical events we've been organising, and I mean, for instance, some of the collaborations that we've done with Rezia have been quite big. We did that choreography piece in the British Museum, for instance, which is part of the Hajj festival. It was a huge, you know, you had like a couple of thousand people in that great court, you know, what is it called, the Great Courtyard?
Yes.
A choreography piece with pieces which you with the choreography and other things like that. So we're used to doing having these these big,
Physical,
big profile kind of
with
events.
an audience,
We've also got a question about how you would show your weavings, Rezia. Are they free hanging? Are they exhibited against a wall?
Yeah, so the pieces are hang. I used to put technicians, and Laura knows this, and Morak knows this. They hang from the ceiling, really. Sometimes I've had people think that they are worn and they are headscarves, but they're not. They are, they are actually. I've got pieces which are 3 meters long, and they hang from the ceiling. And for me, it is the cloths are. I feel they should be democratic, if you like, so that they can be used and free to be used as and how people wanted. But for me, I like to create the space and see how the sort of the transparency and the translucency with the eye and how light travels through. So it's very important that they are hang for one to look around, to feel, to move, and to sort of the air to sort of move it. Hanging mainly. I've also had them being danced with. I've choreographed, as Khaled said, dance ballet with ballet dancers. So they sort of move the fabric, so you can move with them within a space and see how diversely you can wear them as well as hang them.
Wow. Well, we're getting lots of wonderful compliments for your work, but there's one final question here, unless anybody's got another question. Khaled, you worked in TV, I believe, in the past?
Yeah, it was a film and TV company that I ran with 2 other people. So we worked with BBC and Anglia TV and whatnot.
So did that help with your creative writing?
Yes and no. I was a writer before it, but I didn't like the loneliness, and I think that some people go into some things like film, TV, and writing within it, because it's not a lonely, it's all too much, very much a collaborative process. But I also found that after, I think I was in there about half a dozen years, I guess I found the world. I wanted to go back to being a lonely writer, and having there are pros and cons to being within the media world like that, and to have your work basically it's just merely in it's like a blueprint for other people, then for then the director to come on board, the producer to come on board, the production designer. It's simply a blueprint. You never have, it's very rare that a writer has the same kind of status as someone with a novel, because it's really just simply a blueprint for the picture to come out. On any feature film for the last 15 years, in effect, the film belongs to the director, not the writer at all. It belongs to the director. So it is what it is.
Oh, lovely.
Okay. I think so. We did. Yeah, because somebody's just asking how you met, which you did cover earlier, I think. But in terms of collaborating with each other, I think, Rezia, you said you'd had to collaborate more with Khaled because you don't have access to other artists to work with when you're programming things.
Yeah. So we met actually. Did somebody want to know how we met? Is that what? Did you want me to go into that?
Yeah, if you could, because I think you did mention it briefly, but somebody was asking whether you met in an art context.
Absolutely.
Would you like to say, because I will say a bit about, yes, I had to, the collaboration, so because my work, it's very fine, but I also like to add music to it, and I also film them, and I also take photographs of them. So in a way, I don't know whether I'm a visual artist, but I like to that film that you saw, which Khaled filmed half and I filmed half, and then he added the music. The art of the loom and the process of weaving is just as important to me as the end product. So I've always wanted to make a film out of how the loom works and all that. And this lockdown, because we have to be virtual, has allowed me to think a little bit rather than physically taking the loom and giving a workshop. It's allowed me to do something that I've always wanted to do, and it's been very, very handy to have Khaled's background in filmmaking and music. And so yes, so otherwise I would have had to, I don't know how it would be for me to find other artists who could do that.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
Now, how we met, I think I'll let, I don't know if there's any romance. I don't know. Maybe
Work. It's always
or was
work.
it just work?
It always work.
Thank you.
No, I was organising lots of events, cultural and music and literary events, and I think one was at St Ethelburgers, and you came along to that. I think it was a concert. I created an installation. I was part of this very high caliber Arab classical ensemble. We met through there, and then there were other. It was always art related.
Always bumping into him, and bumping into him at events.
But it helped that I was very, very regularly organising these kinds of spiritual, music, literary events that would attract somebody like Rezia. So I would see her there, and well, it was inevitable, I'm sure.
Lovely. And somebody's asked, what's the name of the drumming that you did at the start?
This is a duff. So it's now seen preeminently as the instrument in the Muslim world, but prior to that, it's one of the very, very earliest most common instruments of all humanity. So they reckon that with the bone whistle, the frame drum, not as prettily made as this, but the frame drum, this is what it is, it's a frame drum. This is the oldest, more or less the oldest instrument of humanity. So it takes me back.
So it's called a duff, D-A-F.
Yeah. Okay. And is there any way that anyone can download your music?
I have, I've happily, Rezia says that, I was a humble Sufi musician, so I didn't want stuff online. I learned, and I've done most of my really good performances within spiritual ceremonies. I learned in Sufi ceremonies, a bit like Whitney Houston, sort of learning within sort of gospel congregations or whatever. So I have kept them offline. There are a couple, I believe.
There is one. So what you played at the British Museum. There's a British Museum one.
There are some of me teaching workshops wherever. There's only a couple of me actually playing, and to be honest, I one reason why I'm happy, I prefer to be known as an author, is I think that I'm a very, very good writer. When I compare myself to Persian musicians, you know, I don't. What I am is I'm a good rhythm. I'm a good rhythm guitarist. Now, who the hell wants, you know, goes to a concert and says, hey, you know, I saw this really good rhythm guitarist. You know,
But can I just come in here? Can I just come in here, please, Khaled?
yes.
Because that's what you say about your drumming. But your drumming has led to so many projects, to organizing things, bringing people together. You do the zikrs and you bring people together. I've worked with you as a storyteller. We've done things in interfaith. We've done things at the Muslim News Awards. And even though you're very humble about your playing, in fact, your playing has brought people together. So I don't think we can pass on that.
And also, oh yes, well, thank you, Sef. Also, I don't know whether fate would bring me to him if it was just his writing, because he hasn't written a poem about me yet, or a book about, you know, me yet. But when he does drum, I do feel what you feel, Seth. And it would be a shame to leave that. I think you don't have to call yourself a musician, but but you are a Sufi musician.
I used to play at all your public reading demonstrations.
Yes, I think
workshops.
yes, I think leaving the musician out and the duff away, I think that would really cause a rift between us, because my first solo show, we met just when I was organizing my first solo show in 2007 at the Craft Study Center, and I was weaving. I wove 7 large, huge pieces. I was so exhausted. And it really, Khaled's music really helped. He played for my show at the open evening. And it really helped me calm down, and that, you know, people could actually hear his music rather than me talking, if you know what I mean. So, yeah. He also drummed me in during our wedding.
Which is a traditional thing. It's a traditional thing to drum with a daf, to drum the bride in. Yeah.
He also drummed he played the drum in the year of the children as they were, you know, newborns, with the prayer. So
in the womb.
yeah. So it's I think. You could be a great writer, but what you do with your music is greater than the writing. I really do. That's how I feel.
Okay. Well, I think I might hand you back to Seth to conclude, because I know Laura's going to invite people to stay on socially if they want.
Yes. Okay.
A really nice thing just before I do is, as Khaled said, he's likes to think of himself as a writer first and foremost. The Irish Times has included his book in the 59 books to watch out for in 2020, all from independent publishers in January this year. That's a pretty impressive start.
It is. It is, Penny, and thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for those wonderful questions. I have to say that the questions really opened it up at the end. There were some lovely questions. Thank you, Penny, for taking that part. And Laura, you are the people we have seen, but there are other people behind the scenes who have made it happen. There's Morag, there's Orlando, all doing their bit to make it happen. And I have to say that it was wonderful to be invited to have a chat with you. So thank you, everybody. And as Penny said, if you want to stay on, this finishes now, but I think we should virtually give our artists a virtual thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us, Laura, Penny, Morag, and Seth, for such a beautiful introduction and presentation, which, you know, I don't know whether we deserve it, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Seth, for being such an expert interviewer. That was wonderful, and I was able to sit back and enjoy this evening. So thank you very much. Thanks to our audience for overcoming technical feats of joining us. And thank you to our artists and my dear neighbours. So, and I hope you can stick around.